Hello everybody, today we will cover connectors from Offline 1 Unit 5 Skills section. So connectors are a number of words, word groups or structures that we use to join simple sentences and form complex ones. In reading, connectors act as guides into meaning because they divide long structures into manageable units into shorter parts, and they show the relationship between parts of a long sentence or text. You can use connectors to guess what kind of information will be given in the next sentence. Now let's have a look at some basic connectors. So connectors that signal contrast are but, however, and although. Let's start with but. So it was a cold but fine morning. So to show the contrast between those two adjectives, we use but. We can also use but to show the contrast between two sentences. I called him is the first sentence, he didn't answer is the second one. So to show the contrast between them, we use but. And when we use but to join two sentences like this, we need to use a comma before but. However is the second one. So he had excellent qualifications, however he couldn't get the job. We can use however at the beginning of the second sentence like this, or we can use it with a semicolon. Although is the next one. Although the acoustics in the hall were poor, everybody enjoyed the concert. When we use although at the beginning of the sentence, we need to use a comma here to separate those two sentences. But when we use it in the middle, we don't need to use a comma. Now let's look at the connectors that signal addition. They are and, also, in addition, moreover. So we can use and to join two verbs like this. We had dinner and talked about the old days. We can also use it to join two nouns or two adjectives. We need a new computer and a printer in the office. Here we have two nouns and we join them using and. We can also connect two sentences using and like this. The car was in excellent condition and the price was reasonable. So when we have two sentences, we need to put a comma before and. Another connector that signals addition is in addition. You can find various kinds of goods at that supermarket. In addition, the prices are quite cheap. So you can use in addition at the beginning of the sentence at the beginning of the second sentence after a full stop here, or you can use it with a semicolon. Don't forget to add a comma here after in addition. And moreover is used in the same way as in addition. You can use it at the beginning of the second sentence or with a semicolon. So they are all of those connectors are used to provide additional extra information. And we have one more connector that signals addition, which is also. So we can use also at the beginning of the second sentence like this, or we can use it before the verb. Credit cards are convenient. They also help you to manage your budget more effectively. So we use it after the subject, before the verb. But if our verb is to be, we will use also after verb to be. Okay, some connectors that signal paraphrasing are that is or that is to say, and in other words. So let's look at that is first. The politician was economical with the truth. That is or that is to say he was lying. Here, by using that is, we are paraphrasing what we say in the first sentence. Like economical with the truth means he was lying. So when we use that is, we are telling the same thing using different words in the second sentence. And in other words, most old people are conservative. In other words, they don't accept new ideas very easily. So in the second sentence, when we use in other words, we paraphrase this conservative. We explain this word using different words. Like conservative, in this case, conservative means not accepting new ideas very easily. Some connectors that signal examples are such as, for example, and for instance. So when we use such as, after such as, we cannot use a sentence. We need to list the nouns like this. Most young people prefer to wear casual clothes. So I will give examples of those casual clothes, such as jeans and t-shirts. Okay, after such as, we will just list the nouns. We cannot use a sentence. But after, for example, we need to write a full sentence with a subject and verb like this. Students can use media to improve their listening skills. Full stop, or we can also use semicolon here. They can watch TV programs in English. So here in the second sentence, I provide some examples of how they can improve their listening skills by using media. So for example and for instance are used in the same. They are exactly the same. Now let's have a look at the connectors that signal reason. They are because, since, as, and in order to, or just to. We can use because, since, and as in the same way. They can be used in the middle like this, like 1973 marks the beginning of the information age. Why? I explained the reason here. Because, since, as the microchip was invented then. We can also use them at the beginning like this, but when we use them at the beginning, we need to put a comma here to separate those two sentences. Another connector that signals reason is to or in order to. So we can use it at the beginning, just like because, since, and as, but we need to be careful because after in order to or to, we need to use verb 1. So in order to is followed by verb 1. Like in order to determine our needs, comma, because we use it at the beginning of the sentence, everyone will have to prepare a list. We can also use it in the middle, and when we use it in the middle, there is no need to use a comma. Okay, and finally, let's have a look at the connectors that signal result. They are so, thus, as a result, consequently, and therefore. Let's start with so. He is unemployed, so he is looking for a job. To provide a result for this sentence, he is unemployed, we use so and we write the result. He is looking, so he is looking for a job. Be careful. We need to use so in the middle between two sentences. We cannot start a new sentence, or we cannot use so at the beginning of a new sentence. And before so, we can use a comma, but it's optional. But as I said, be careful. We need to use so in the middle between two sentences like this. Don't start a new sentence using so. If you want to start a new sentence to explain the result, you can use thus, as a result, consequently, and therefore. So here we have thus, I hate watching, full stop, thus I don't have a TV set. Or we can also use a semicolon and then thus. As a result, the same, the temperature of the gas rises. As a result, it expands in the cylinder. So we write the result here. And we have some examples with consequently. They cancelled all the flights. Consequently, most passengers spent the night at the airport. So this is the result. And in the second, this is the reason. The first sentence is the reason. The second one explains or gives us the result. And another example sentence with, therefore, most houses had weak foundations. Therefore, they collapsed in the earthquake. So we can use those connectors to show result. Okay, so these are some of the basic connectors that we use to join sentences or ideas and to show the relationship between them. Okay, now let's practice the connectors we have covered. If you have offline one book with you, you can open page 91 and 92. So here is the first exercise. You will choose a suitable connector from the box to fill the blanks. Pause the video now and write your answers on a piece of paper or on your notebooks, and when you finish, play the video to check the answers. So here we have the answers. Let's discuss them one by one. In number 1, we have examples of costs like travel and accommodation. That's why we have to use such as. Here we cannot use for example. Remember, after for example, we need to write a sentence, but here we don't have a sentence. We have just a list of nouns like travel and accommodation. So we have to use such as. And in the second one, in the second sentence, we have two contrasting ideas like cigarette smoking is dangerous to health, millions of people continue to smoke. So to show this contrast, the contrast between those two sentences, we use although. And in the third sentence, it says in certain jobs there are more women than men, and in the second sentence we have some examples like teachers and nurses, examples for those jobs, so we have to use for example. In number 4, in the second sentence, we provide a result for the first one. Like it says flats in this part of town are too expensive for one person. So what happens when the flats are too expensive? A lot of students look for someone to share a flat with. So in the second sentence, we give the result. So we have to use as a result here. And in the next one, it says parents offer to look for funding. And in this part, in the second part, it explains the reason why parents offer to look for funding in order to help the teachers start an after-school club. So here we cannot choose because or since or as to show the result because we have verb 1 here. Remember, after because we have to use a subject and verb, but after because we need to use verb 1. In number 6, we have a reason-result relationship. Like in Turkey, many people die in road accidents every year. This is the result, and they drive carelessly is the reason part. So to show the reason, we will use because here. To show that it's the reason is given here, we will use because. We cannot use in order to. As I have just said, after in order to, we have to use verb 1, but here we have a subject and verb, so we have to choose because. In number 7, we have two pieces of information about Matthew. So the first one is high quality of education, and in the second part, it says it has a beautiful campus. So we add or we give some extra information about Matthew. So we will use in addition. In number 8, in the second part, we have an unexpected result. Like they thought only a few people would apply for the job, but there were about 100 applicants. So to show this unexpected result, we will use however. And in number 9, it says there's an excellent art museum in town. So this is one piece of information, and in the second part we have another information about this town, which is it has a fine symphony orchestra. So to show this extra additional information, we will use also. And in the last sentence, we paraphrase the first part here. Many people in poorer parts of the world starve to death. In other words, they don't have enough to eat and die of hunger. So I paraphrase or I tell the same thing, this start to that part, using different words this time. So start to that means not having enough to eat and die of hunger. Another exercise, pause the video and when you finish, play it. Now let's check the answers. In the first blank, I mean in 11, we use in addition because we give another situation in which we cry, which is when a dangerous substance reaches the eyes. So we provide extra information about when we cry. In 12, we choose that is because blink your eyes here means closing and opening the eyelids. So the second part here after that is paraphrases the first part. That's why we have to use that is. And in 13, in the second part, we provide the reason why tears come out from the tear gland. So why do tears come out from the tear gland? Because the eyelids apply pressure onto the tear gland when they close. In 14, again in the second part, we have the reason, or let's say the purpose. We can say, why do tears are produced? In order to wash and wet the sclera. So here in the second part, we explain why tears are produced. So we use in order to. This will the verb wash will help you to decide that you need to use in order to here, because remember after in order to we have to use verb 1, so we cannot choose because here. And in this part, in 15, we have the result, prevent it from drying out. So tears wash and wet the sclera. What happens when tears wash and wet the sclera? The sclera doesn't dry out, or it's prevented from drying out. So we give the result here. In 16, we need to use however, because in this sentence, we have a contrasting idea to the previous one, this one, number 14 and 15. So here we said that tears wash and wet the sclera, as you can see, it says normally tears are produced to wash and wet the sclera, but in this part, their function is different. So it's not to wash and wet the sclera, it's to wash the substance out to protect the eyes. So to show this difference, to show this different idea, we use however. And in the last one, we have an example. It says the same thing happens when, so we give the situations here. For example, smoke or a sharp smell reaches the eyes. And the last exercise, pause the video again, and when you finish, we'll check the answers. Okay, here you go. In 18, we have an unexpected result in the second part. It says it was in the 20th century that the first real submarine was invented. When in the first sentence it says that people tried to build a submarine for several hundred years, the second part is contrary to our expectations. And to show that it's contrary to our expectations, we need to use although here. And in 19, it says his boat was better. It had a steam engine. So this part gives us the reason why his boat was better. So we will use because. In 20, we had extra information here. It says it could carry a torpedo. So the first piece of information is that it had a steam engine, yes. And the second piece of information is that it could carry a torpedo. So to show that we add extra or additional information, we choose moreover here. And in 21, we use however, because this part, this sentence, it didn't help them much, shows us an unexpected result. When it says the Americans tried to use this boat against the British, this is not the result what we expect. It did not help them much. So to show this unexpected result, we use however. In 22, we use consequently because here in this sentence, a result is given or provided for the previous ideas or for the previous sentences in this paragraph. What happened? I mean, it gives us a result for what happened when they designed or invented the first submarine. This is the result. Submarines were used widely as warships during the 2 world wars. Okay, that's the end of the exercises.